Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of a 4-part series in the Jewish idea of meditation. They would tell a story about a young guy who joins a local meditation group. And he goes his first time, and he's really excited. He spends an hour there. And as he's leaving, he says to the clerk at the desk, how much do I owe you? He said, well, each lesson is $20. So he looks in his wallet, he's fishing around for his bills. The lowest one he has is $100. So he hands the clerk, and he's waiting, and the clerk's just standing looking at him. And he's, excuse me, class costs $20. I just gave you a $100 bill. Don't you give people change here? He said, no, change must come from within. In the broadest sense, the goal of meditation is to draw a Jew closer to God. In many other forms of meditation, the goal is self-realization. So while in Judaism we believe and give credence to the idea that clearing extraneous thoughts is a good thing, and feelings of inner peace and serenity are also a good thing, it's not the ultimate goal. A person hasn't achieved the pinnacle. What is meditation all about with those things? So I meditate. What is the goal? We've talked several times about the example of the thief who, before breaking into the person's house that he's going to rob, prays to God that he should be successful. The ultimate contradiction of terms. He's a thief, right in front of the guy's house, about to rob them, and he prays to God that he should be successful. So let's ask a question over here. Does the thief believe in God? Yeah, he does. He wouldn't be praying if he didn't believe in God. Just what's the problem over here? It hasn't hit him in a practical way. He believes, but his belief is more transcendent. It's more an ethereal idea than something that's part of his practical daily life. More common, how many people in their business dealings pray to God that they should be successful and then do shady business practices? It happens all the time. What's the idea? The person believes in God. They're praying. They're addressing their prayers, dear God. So how come they're doing things that God finds reprehensible? It's because they do believe. It is in their head, but as it hasn't made its way down into their heart. It hasn't become a part of them. It hasn't become a part of who they are. They believe in God, but it's not part of their experience. In 11th century Spain, there was a very interesting work that was published. It's a work that's still studied very extensively to this day. It's called Chovos Halavavos, the duties of the heart. The author of this book said that in Judaism there are many works that describe how a person is meant to practice, what they're meant to do. What are the duties of the person? Put on tefillin, light Shabbat candles. What are our limbs supposed to do? But none of them talk about what are the duties of the heart. So he compiled a work that described the duties of the heart. What is meant to be integrated into our system? About a century later, the Rambam, the famed medieval sage Maimonides, made a compilation of all the 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. Among them are 6 mitzvahs that are meant to be done at every second. There's the 6 constant mitzvahs. They're obligatory at every moment. Right now, and now, and now, we're obligated in these 6 mitzvahs. What are they? Get your checklist out. See how well you're doing. Number 1, to believe in God. Number 2, to unify His name, to love God, to fear Him, to love your fellow, and to not turn astray after one's heart's desires to the wrong things. Believing in, loving, fearing, these are not passive things. Love God. Oh yeah, I love God. I'm doing that right now. I love Him. Most of us, we don't even think about it, right? Do you love God? If someone were to ask you, do you love God? I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I do. I love it. But what does that mean? I love God. So these are commands, these are obligations that we have that are not meant to be passive. I love God now, I fear God now, right now, right here, right now. These are not passive mitzvahs. These are something that have to be taken to heart. These are things that have to be experienced. Love is an emotion. Love has to be felt. Love is something that is part of who you are. The verse tells us in the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, know this day and take it into your heart that Hashem is God in the heavens above, in the earth below, there is none else. Know this day and take it to your heart. Not just know, but take it to your heart. Make it a part of you. Make it a part of your experience that God is God. The Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, brings in his famous work, the Tanya, that this is one of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Every Jew has an obligation, has the opportunity to not only know, but to take it to heart. We all have to meditate. Through meditation, through thinking about stuff, that's what evokes our emotions. We have a verse that we say all the time. Everyone knows the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. God is one. God is one. You ever thought about that? What does that mean? We say it all the time. We're supposed to say it twice a day. This is not a passive thing that we just kind of glance over. Think about what that means. We have to think about what that means. Now, this is no thing that we can talk about on one foot. We could have a whole course set up just to, what do these words mean? But it's something that we have to think about. It's not done by rote. It comes only about realizing God is one, knowing that God is one. That's something that comes about through deep contemplation. The person, in order to get what the Shema is talking about, has to think about it, has to meditate on it. You have to know what you're meditating on. You have to learn more. A person has to learn in order to know what to think about. What do we say after the Shema? We say, Ve'ahavta, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. That sounds great. You shall love. God commands us to love. The Maggid of Mezrich has a very famous question. How can we be commanded to love? Love God. Okay, I'll just turn on my love switch. How can a person be commanded to love? Love is something internal. Love is personal. Love is powerful. I can't just be commanded, you shall love. Okay, I love. So the Maggid explains what's the command? To meditate. How is the love created? How is the feeling created? Through understanding more about God. More about Torah, more about Judaism. By learning the depths of Judaism, of Torah, we're learning more about godliness. Through learning, through the understanding, a feeling will be created. Anything in the world, a feeling can't be developed towards it unless you understand what it's all about. We see the divorce rate in America is at such because the love that you thought that you had wasn't based on an understanding, didn't make sense. But we were so in love, it was so great. Was it really? Was the understanding really there? So emotions are generated by understanding. The more a person understands about Torah, the more a person understands about godliness and spirituality, the more that they will experience a love. This is the goal of meditation, to experience a love, to have an active love, and also an awe, a fear, a reverence towards God. Maimonides says, if a person wants to love God, a person wants to arouse his feelings of love, he has to learn more. He has to think about some things think about the godly concepts. That will arouse the love and the fear. There's a story that's told of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Now, in the days of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, he was one of the early Hasidic Rebbes. And during the early formation of the Hasidic movement, there were many who were opposed to this new integration of spiritual ideas. It was a kind of new system. It was also at a kind of rough time in Jewish history. So he had a lot of opposition. So one time somebody asked him, Rabbi Nachman, what do you say about all these people who don't like you? There are a lot of big rabbis, there's a lot of very important people who really don't like you. Like, really don't like you. What do you think of that? And he says, they only hate me who they think I am. And if they were right, they'd be right. If who they thought I was who I was, they'd be right in hating me. So emotions, evoking emotion, stems from understanding. A person wants to develop an emotion, a person wants to connect in a deeper way. Enhance our connection, enhance our attachment to God, to the spiritual. It only comes through understanding. Sometimes, I've done it several times before, take a group of kids to Israel on birthright. What happens? It's a great trip, and we see this, and we see that. All of a sudden, the day comes that we go to Jerusalem. And not only Jerusalem, but we make our way to the Kotel. We make our way to the Western Wall. And what happens when we get there? Now, mind you, all of these kids are not religious people. Most of them are not even affiliated with a synagogue at home. They have very little connection with Judaism until this point. So as we approach the Western Wall, what do you think happens? Many of them begin to just pour out tears. Pour out tears. If we would have went to the Great Wall of China, would the same thing have happened? Not necessarily. Every Jew, deep down, wants to connect with God. The yearning is there. The desire is there. We want God. What happens? Sometimes the static of life gets in the way. Our mind is preoccupied with the static, with the other stuff, with what's going on TV, what's going on with this event, what's going on with my job, what's going on with things at home. Some of them are important, some of them aren't, but at the end of the day, it's static, taking us away from our innermost desire that really wants to connect with God, really wants to connect with the spiritual. So what happens to those kids at the Western Wall? This inner desire to connect to God, which hasn't been able to express itself until now because they were living just with the static of life, all of a sudden, boom, they hit the wall, 3,000 years of Jewish history hits them right in the face. And seeing is believing. Seeing is understanding. Seeing is knowing. With this new understanding that they can't even conceptualize what it is yet, but it hits them in such a real way that they understand who they are, why they're here. Their emotions take over and they can't control themselves. And he asked them, why are you crying? I don't know. It's a common phenomenon. But I doubt that there's too many other places for a Jew in the world where such a thing would take place. In life, we have two different modes of the way that inspiration hits us. Sometimes it's from the outside that affects us, like the example with the kids who see the Western Wall for their first time. And in a more meaningful way is when it comes from the inside. The idea of meditation is making those same feelings felt on a regular basis. That same love, that same awe, that same inspiration that's felt when you're a kid the first time in front of the Western Wall. That same level of connection, that same awe and inspiration to be felt on a regular day. The goal of meditation is realizing that God and godliness and spirituality is just as much present on your dining room table on an average Wednesday as it is in synagogue at the height of the Yom Kippur service. Making it a part of our life experience. Thinking about these deep concepts until they become part of our own being. So, when I was telling somebody before the class the gist of what we were going to talk about, he asked that, well, where does a beginner, or where does someone who's interested, where do we start? Do you have some basic meditations, things to think about, concepts to, where do I go from here? So next time what we'll do is we'll take a look at some of the concepts that are interesting to think about. And if anyone wants, after that class, we can talk about books I can recommend that through learning about it, they'll be able to focus their attention or learn about it more, that the meditation will be able to develop even better. So find out next time.